सिनेमा, साहित्य और राजनीतिक जगत में मोहा माना जाता है। भारत लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल में नीरजा चौधरी जी का स्वागत है। Please give a huge round of applause for our esteemed guests. Bharat Literature Festival welcomes Ms. Neerja Chowdhury and RJ Guinea. I request the director of Bharat Literature Festival to kindly felicitate our esteemed guest, Ms. Neerja Chowdhury. I now request the director of Bharat Literature Festival, Ms. Dipali Vashist, to kindly felicitate our esteemed guest, RJ Guinea. Now I request RJ Guinea to kindly begin the session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear us? Yes? Perfect. Neerja ma'am, you've written an amazing book. This book is called How Prime Ministers Decide. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been introduced to the brilliance of Neerja ma'am, to the fact that you've seen politics close up personal all of these years. Ma'am, it's a fantastic book. मैं पिछले 3 दिनों से मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ, मैं ज़्यादातर फिक्शन पढ़ती हूँ. इससे अच्छी फिक्शन मैंने कभी नहीं पढ़ी होगी. मतलब दिस इज क्रेजियर देन फिक्शन. There are stories, ladies and gentlemen, about friendships. There are stories how politicians from completely opposing parties helped each other. There are stories how politicians from opposing parties helped each other come to power. There are stories of betrayal. There are stories of human hair follicles being collected. एक नाई की दुकान खोली गई थी ये डिसाइड करने के लिए कि पाकिस्तान में न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन कितना हो रहा है, कितनी टेस्टिंग हो रही है. ये सब कुछ इस किताब का हिस्सा है. It's been fantastic reading. For 3 days you hooked me on. Guys, you have to give her a round of applause just for this book. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
नीरजा मैम से जितना चीजें बदलती हैं वो उतनी सेम रहती है ना. और आपकी ये किताब पढ़ते पढ़ते मुझे रियलाइज हुआ, चाहे वो इश्यूज हो गवर्नमेंट के, चाहे गवर्नमेंट जिस तरह से चलती है, बहुत कुछ बदला पर बहुत कुछ स्टैटिक भी रहा. So one thing according to you that has seen a sea change in Indian politics, what has changed and what has remained the same?
Shall I get up?
नहीं जैसे जैसे बैठे बैठे हाँ
What has changed, I'll come to later. But first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me here and having me speak to so many people here, which is a privilege.
buy the book, buy the book.
Yeah, of course, buy the book. Absolutely. That's the message. Change and what has remained the same. What has remained the same, I'm going to get up because I can see people's expressions. What has remained the same is that politicians are at heart politicians. वो नहीं बदलता. And their main goal is to come to power, to retain power, somehow by hook or by crook, if I may use those horrible words. किस तरह से पावर को रिटेन किया जाए. Some have a little bit of idealism, goals to pursue, ideology to pursue, but by and large it's been power, the pursuit of power, that is a hallmark of what remains,
Or what politicians want, yes.
what remains unchanged. What has changed, of course, is very much, what we see. We start off with Nehru, who built
सभी वॉलंटियर एनसीसी कैडेट सभी ध्यान दें. अनिरुद्ध जिसका निकनेम टिंटिन है, 4 साल का बच्चा है, ब्लू टी शर्ट और ग्रे पैंट पहना हुआ है. जिस भी किसी व्यक्ति को यह बच्चा अपने आसपास दिखाई देता है, उसे हॉल नंबर 5 के रिसेप्शन काउंटर पर छोड़ने में मदद करें. ब्लू टी शर्ट, ग्रे पैंट, 4 साल का बच्चा अनिरुद्ध.
Ma'am, you were saying.
Doesn't matter. This is part of the book fair ambience. What has changed is we have moved from Nehru to Narendra Modi.
Yes.
And that is a complete shift, 180-degree shift, a paradigm shift in Indian politics. In my epilogue, I have otherwise in the book written about 6 prime ministers. Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, P.V. Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Yes.
But I haven't written about Modi
That was a question. Why is he not there?
because I felt it was work in progress. I didn't have the benefit of hindsight to make an assessment as I did with the other prime ministers. And very important, I had information, but I did not have hard information, hard inside information about how a decision was made, which was what I wanted to look at. And that is inevitable, because those around the seat of power who have access to the prime minister will not talk freely when a prime minister is an incumbent. That is true of the other prime ministers also. Those around them talked after they demitted office. So I felt, and some of my friends felt, this is a project for the future. But a shakhsiyat like Modi, you cannot ignore in a book like that about how prime ministers decide. So I decided to do an epilogue, and I start my epilogue
With him, where you talk about, so I'm going to start, give them a little bit of a brief. मुझे बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगा मैम. आपने लिखा है कि किस तरह से इमेजरी बिल्ड होती है. The fact that a person is always photographed when he is alone. जबकि जनरली ऐसा देखा गया है कि ग्रुप्स में फोटोग्राफ्स होती है. It sort of gives out an imagery. I thought that was very interesting, and that's how you brought in the Prime Minister.
Right, but I was just going to complete the epilogue. I start by quoting Dr. Karan Singh, who has worked with every Prime Minister of India. उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि Narendra Modi may not like this. I don't know whether he will like this or not, but he would really like to be like Nehru and to surpass him. And you know, it struck me, आप भी जाएंगे अगर प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स म्यूजियम में, तो जैसे ही आप एंटर करेंगे रिसेप्शन में, तो on the 3 walls you have all the prime ministers one after another, and then you turn around like this over the entrance and there are 2 pictures, Nehru and Modi.
The first and the current.
And I have given the similarities and the differences. But coming to your question, I start my book with the formulation that the top is a very lonely place. जो वहाँ बैठता है ना, at the head of a company, head of a family, and of course, head of a country is an awesome, position to be in. The buck stops with you. And it's an incredible feeling which many of the prime ministers express, to say that I'm going to make a decision which is going to affect millions of people for generations to come. So how they dealt with loneliness, different prime ministers, but Narendra Modi made a virtue out of it. Solitude, alone. So you see him come down Air India 1. Nobody behind him, one figure. You see him in front of Sardar Patel's statue, nobody else. You see him even inaugurating an underpass, all alone. Even sitting in a train in a foreign country, all alone. And it's a strategy.
That's what was very interesting.
It is strategy to say, "Main hoon na." That is what he wants to convey. So Indira Gandhi bhi karti thi, she used to not let the person across her know दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है. So she would doodle on her paper. वो बोलते जाएंगे ना हाँ कहेंगी ना ये ना कहेंगी. So she has the measure of a person, but they don't have a measure of what she's thinking. So there have been prime ministers who put loneliness, aloneness, solitude to good political use.
I agree. हम कहते हैं पॉलिटिक्स में कोई परमानेंट फ्रेंड्स नहीं होते, कोई परमानेंट एनिमीज नहीं होते. पावर में सब कुछ चलता है. What was that one relationship when it turned sour or they became friends which surprised you or surprised a lot of people?
When it was sour and it became
Good.
friendly.
Either of the two, friendly or sour to friendly.
Sour to friendly तो बहुत सारे हैं. Opponents and all. Sour नहीं, but opponents turning friendly. The biggest example is Narasimha Rao and Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
I know, yes. I mean, I don't know how many people out here know, because we are in a book fair, that when Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji wrote his book of poetry, it was actually inaugurated by Narasimha Rao, who were absolute political different parties. I mean, I don't know how many of you knew this.
And he said, ये तो मेरे गुरु हैं. तो वाजपेयी ने तुरंत बोला नहीं, ये गुरु घंटाल है. The guru. But they helped each other. जब वाजपेयी पावर में आए, तो नरसिम्हा राव ने उन्हें कहा कि आप न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट कीजिए. We were absolutely ready for it. We were only 3 days away. I couldn't do it. You go ahead and do it. Vajpayee's government lasted 13 days in 1996. 1998, जैसे वो power में आए, he did that. So he briefed him completely. And then he was in UN and he was sitting next to Bhuvnesh Chaturvedi and Rao Saab at this side, and he said to him that Kalyan Singh chief minister नहीं बनने चाहिए यूपी में. Kalyan Singh is a protege of LK Advani, and UP is the terrain of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And Narasimha Rao sent word to Motilal Vora, the governor of UP, Kalyan Singh को नहीं बुलाना है. So they were, there were also instances of you scratch my back and I scratch yours. But I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Very few people know that Vajpayee had cancer since the mid-1980s. And when Rajiv Gandhi died, Vajpayee ने कहा था, राजीव गांधी saved my life. राजीव ने उन्हें ट्रीटमेंट के लिए न्यूयॉर्क भेजा था, and with the instructions that he will not come back till the treatment is complete. So he gave the credit to Rajiv, but every prime minister after Rajiv would send him to the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, every year to attend it, but also to get his checkups done. And
Despite whichever political party.
and no prime minister leaked this information. You know, it's a deadly information to say some PM on the opposing side has cancer. To say you're ill and might die is not a very good thing for a politician. No prime minister did that. So there's a cross-party links also. What I would, the other side of the story, what I would hope for is that kind of a relationship develops between Narendra Modi and Sonia Gandhi.
My next question was going to be that. Do you think politics, bonhomie, the friendships that they had are a thing of the past?
I won't say thing of the past, but I would say between the ruling side and the opposition side, बहुत करवाहट आ गई है, बहुत कटुता आ गई है. There's a lot of bitterness. And of course, you have to be fierce opponents. You must stand up for your views, for your party and fight. But there must be some, क्या आप फोन उठा के कह सकते हैं कि भाई ये करें कि नहीं करें, for the larger cause.
I think that is lovely. Ma'am, इस किताब को पढ़ी थी मैं, and I was talking to my mother, and she said that I should ask you a question. She said कि ना एक जमाने में जो politicians होते थे ना, उन सबके पास astrologers होते थे, और वो astrologers इतने important होते थे कि वो बड़े-बड़े decisions ले लेते थे. And these days also we see the same, right? So what is this whole astrologer, politicians? Is there a story you'd like to tell us which is fun?
Superstition.
Yes. Superstition works.
Indira Gandhi decided to go in for election, and it is said the date was decided by the astrologers. Narasimha Rao, I must say this, he had a guru named Shivanand Murthy. वो प्रधानमंत्री थे. Shivanand Murthy had an ashram in Visakhapatnam, and he was a police officer turned to spiritualism. तो राव साहब जाते थे हर 2-3 महीने उनसे बात करते. He loved to talk about Hindu thought and philosophy and have discussion with Shivanand Murthy. तो एक दिन उन्होंने पूछा Guruji, and he'd openly call him Guruji, Guruji, what do you think is going to happen to the Babri Masjid? So Shivanand Murthy shut his eyes and after a few minutes said, I don't see it there. And this affected Rao Saab, I'm told, people who knew him who told me this. This affected him deeply. And did it play a part in somewhere in his decision making? Indira Gandhi. Again, this is a story I have written. How in 1980, when she came back to power with a record majority, this is emergency khatam ho gayi, she went out of power in the elections, and then 1980 she won the elections again. तो उनकी मोहन बीकिन कंपनी थी जो ओल्ड मॉन्क बनाती थी, जो बहुत सपोर्ट करते थे इंदिरा गांधी को. And one of the members said, ma'am, you should go to Chamunda Devi. बहुत मानती थी चामुंडा को. And in between 1977 and 80, she had visited every major temple in the country.
Some things never change.
You know, partly because she feared for Sanjay, her son, and partly she wanted to give a Hindu tilt to her politics. So, उन्होंने कहा आप चामुंडा जाइए. She said, yes, I will go. I'll send you word. So 4 months down the line, she sent them word. मैं 22 जून को चामुंडा जाऊंगी. तो सब तैयारी हो गई चामुंडा में, and suddenly word comes that she's not coming. She decided to give it a miss. तो जो पंडित था वहाँ, he was furious. He said, ordinary people जब नहीं आते माँ के पास तो माँ forgives. But जब ruler नहीं आता है माँ के पास, कह के वो आएगा, माँ does not forgive. तो उन्होंने कहा ठीक है हम लोग पूजा करते हैं. पूजा करके 23 जून की सुबह they were heading back to Delhi when they got word that Sanjay Gandhi's plane had crashed. Now he got a new plane, he was doing some dangerous acrobatics with it and it crashed. Now these people, this group reached Delhi at about 2:30, went to Indiraji's house, she was sitting by the body, she immediately got up and came to the group and said, has this happened because I didn't go to Chamunda? So somewhere, somebody who was so powerful as a prime minister was so vulnerable and superstitious. Then she went to Chamunda 6 mahine baad, and that very Pandit, his hand shook when he performed the puja. Because Indira Gandhi did every mudra to perfection. And she wept and wept and wept. And she went out, planted trees, because this was one of the 5-point programs of Sanjay, and came back that evening to Delhi at one of the functions of National Herald. And gathering like this, she called Rajiv Gandhi to the stage, introduced him to the gathering. So people like you made a mental note of it. But all these politicians, powerful, popular, you feel that you could have done anything, but also very vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable, especially about their families. I have a very important question to ask you because you brought in Mohan Meakin about another industrialist that you brought. But before that, I want to ask, किसी के पास कुछ सवाल है क्योंकि मेरे पास 10,000 है. तो अगर आपके पास कुछ सवाल है, I would like to give you a chance of asking. Is anybody have a question? जी sir. जी sir. अच्छा पहले उनका सब पीछे.
You'll have to tell
अगर
me.
आप सवाल पूछिए मैं सुनाई देगा.
मैम, वर्तमान सरकार जो है उस पे क्या राजनीतिक संबंधों में गिरावट आई है? जो आपसी संबंध है ऐसा देख के लगता है, तो क्या ये उतना सही है कि फिर बाहर से दिखता है अंदर कुछ और है?
अंदर की बात तो नहीं कह सकते, बाहर से तो दिखता है.
And I think she just answered that question just 2 minutes ago जब मैंने पूछा था कि क्या चीजें बदली है नहीं. सर
मैं समझा कि मैं उनके बारे में लिखती कि वो क्या सोचेंगे, देश के बारे में कैसा फैसला लेंगे. मैं समझता हूं कि मोदी जी का जो मंत्र है जो हम लोग देख रहे हैं, दैट इज ही हैज बीन एन आरएसएस वर्कर. उन्होंने तीनों कैंप आरएसएस के उस जमाने में किए हैं. 1960 में जो उस एक आरएसएस बेसिक कैंप का उनका शिक्षक था, जो आरएसएस समझती हैं आप, वहां जब चर्चा होती है, एक आइटम होती है चर्चा कैंप में, वहां दिस मैन वाज जनरल, सबको पूछा गया कौन क्या बनना चाहता है, तो मोदी जी ने उस जवानी में लड़कपन में खड़े होकर कहा मैं देश का प्रधानमंत्री बनना चाहता हूं. उस शिक्षक से कह दिया. और ये जो बात है कि अल्टीमेटली परम वैभव इस देश का, आप कोरिलेट कीजिए मोदी जी का हर एक कदम, चाहे वो सफलता मिली हो या ना मिली हो, दिशा उसी की तरफ होती है कि मैं देश को हर एक डायरेक्शन में, हर एक मोमेंट पे परम वैभव की ओर ले जाऊं. आई थिंक दैट इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट पैरामीटर्स of analyzing and dissecting an RSS worker, whether he's a politician or anything else. Do you agree with this or not?
देखिए, मैंने जो कहा ना, मैंने नहीं लिखा मोदी जी के बारे में, मैंने डाइसेक्ट किया डिसीजंस को. मैंने, इट्स नॉट लाइक अ बायो और सीवी ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर, कहानी नहीं है उनके बारे में जो मेरी कि हाउ डू दे डिसाइड. और मेरे पास अंदरूनी मटेरियल नहीं है उतना जितना कि मेरा और प्रधानमंत्री के पास था.
Like she said at the beginning कि आप बाद में लोगों से बात करते हैं और वो खुल के बात करते हैं इसके बारे में.
वो उतना खुल के नहीं बात करते जब प्रधानमंत्री होता, ये मेरा मानना था. तो मुझे वेट करना पड़ेगा, या जब तक मुझे असली इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिलती किसी डिसीजन को डाइसेक्ट करने के लिए, तो मुझे लगा कि आई विल नॉट बी डूइंग जस्टिस टू द होल थिंग. ये मुझे लगा. Now, what do I think about Narendra Modi? One of the things about Narendra Modi is that वो कहते हैं ना, जो भी चीज वो करना चाहते हैं, it has to be भव्य, it has to be grand.
Larger than life.
किसी बिल्डिंग के बारे में पार्लियामेंट बनाना है तो ग्रैंड, सरदार पटेल का स्टैच्यू तो बिगेस्ट इन द वर्ल्ड, मैडिसन स्क्वायर गार्डन में मीटिंग करनी है तो ऐसी मीटिंग पहले हुई नहीं है. So his aim is, and the word he's used, which one of the officials told me, is to say हमारे देश में काल्पनिक दरिद्रता है, बड़ी चीजें करने की क्षमता नहीं है, वो नहीं है कि हम करेंगे. So that is what, and of course his project is, अब सस्पेंस ये नहीं है कि थर्ड टर्म के लिए आएंगे, आज देश में वो सस्पेंस नहीं है. आज अभी पत्रकारों के साथ मीटिंग हो रही थी, वो कह रहे थे इस इलेक्शन कवर करने का फायदा क्या है, वी ऑल नो. तो सस्पेंस वो नहीं है कि कौन जीतेगा, सस्पेंस है कि थर्ड टर्म में नरेंद्र मोदी क्या करने जा रहे हैं. That is what we all want to
सर
know.
इतना लंबा जवाब दिया, स्माइल ही कर लो. आप इतने गुस्से में बैठे हुए हो, अब तो स्माइल कर लो, तो बाहर भी खुश हो जाइए. इतना अच्छा जवाब. मैम, एक इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट की कहानी आपने लिखी किताब में, जिन्होंने एक राजीव गांधी के पास जाके उनके कान में विस्पर करा था कुछ, बिकॉज ही wasn't getting टाइम. अब मैं कुछ नहीं बोल रही, आपको कहानी सुनो.
When he was not getting time.
Yeah. He said, I've got something from your mom.
A big industrial name.
Big.
This is a story that is folklore in political circles. तब से थी that he wasn't getting an appointment with Rajiv, so he said, your mother left some money with me, I want to come and give it to you. उसके बाद he got access to the Prime Minister.
इसे आपको ये किताब पढ़नी चाहिए, बिकॉज आई थिंक ऐसी बहुत सारी कहानियां हैं. हम सबको लगता है कि हम प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स के बारे में जानते हैं, उन्होंने कौन से मेजर डिसीजंस लिए हैं उसके बारे में जानते हैं, पर ये जो छोटे छोटे एनेक्डोट्स मैम ने लिखे हैं, आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाट मेक्स दिस बुक एक्सट्रीमली इंटरेस्टिंग. व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड रीडिंग दिस बुक, आई थॉट दैट मैं एक जनरेशन के प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स को जानती हूँ, but to read about Indira Gandhi, the way she was, to read about Rajiv Gandhi, how difficult or easy, the Shah Bano case, the Babri Masjid case that actually started then, it was all a revelation. So what is that one story in this book that you think most people don't know but should know about?
There are a lot of stories which even the reviews have said, and this is by journalists reviews, academics and journalists, जिन्होंने कहा है कि हमें पता नहीं था. Of course, we know Babri Masjid came down. Of course, we know Vishwanath Pratap Singh did Mandal. But there are कैसे हुआ, क्या कहानियां थी, वो हमें पता नहीं थी. Like for instance, नरसिम्हा राव, जब मस्जिद ढहा 6 December 1992 में, उसके 3-4 दिन बाद 4 journalists had gone to see him. And they were led by Nikhil Chakravarti, बहुत eminent थे, और उनके दोस्त भी हुआ करते थे राव साहब के. तो उन्होंने कहा, sort of half teasingly said, so सुना है कि आप उस दिन जब बाबरी मस्जिद गिराई जा रही थी, आप उस दिन सो रहे थे या पूजा कर रहे थे. तो राव he was provoked. He said, Dada, he used to call him Dada. Dada, do you think I don't know Rajniti? I was born in Rajniti. I allowed it to come down because I wanted to take the Hindu plank away from the BJP, which was fueling its politics. Now this is something, till today we discuss, did Narasimha Rao collude with the BJP to bring down the masjid? Did Narasimha Rao just allow it to happen? Or was he at fault? Did he not anticipate events? आज तक वो discussion चला आ रहा है. Just as, why did Indira Gandhi order elections in 1977?
A question, yeah.
Emergency हटाने के लिए. She didn't have to do it. There were no sanctions, there were no pressures. क्यों किया? Was she more Nehru's daughter and less Sanjay's mother? Or was it which I say is a very complex story, which you can read in the book. But there are many things like that, which continue to tantalize us even today.
Also, the friendships that are written in the book. But before I go into friendships, I know a lot of people want to ask questions. What are the questions? Who wants to ask a question? Yes, ma'am. Somebody. पर सवाल ना 2 लाइन का. हाँ बस.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. Ma'am, as you have mentioned emergency, probably I wouldn't have born at that time, but I was always been curious that how that decision has really, affected India as it is today. I mean, how the emergency has affected.
Emergency.
Yeah, how it is affected India like that.
I will just preface this with a story to you. I was in a village in Maharashtra, in Satara district, and also in Aurangabad. This same similar conversation took place. And there were young women, teenager girls, college girls, only 20-22 के करीब. And I asked them, who's your favorite prime minister? I was so surprised. In one voice, all of them said Indira Gandhi. Now, why Indira Gandhi continues to fascinate me also, 40 years down the line? Why? Because she touched those highs, creation, Durga, who created Bangladesh, who did not flinch when the 7th fleet was in the Bay of Bengal. Out there at our shore, she did not flinch. She took on Pakistan. So she was a very courage. She showed a high degree of courage and changed geopolitical realities forever. And then there was the other side of Indira Gandhi, the loss, which is the emergency. To retain her own path, she declared an emergency and dispensed with fundamental rights, imposed press censorship, put the judiciary under pressure, so many constitutional amendments which abridge rights at that time. And then her son was the extra constitutional authority behind the throne who was taking all the decisions, Sanjay Gandhi. Sanjay Gandhi, who was the power behind the throne at that time, responsible for the excesses like sterilization, Nasbandi, which lost her the support of the Muslims, he was responsible for her defeat in 77, but he was responsible for her victory in 1980. In those 2.5 years, he is the one who strategized कि कैसे वापस आना. And one of the people close to George Fernandez told me that Sanjay had a mind of a maverick, which none of us on our side could match. So that's what I have explored, that section 77 to 80, how this happened, how she came back to power, Sam Dam Dand Bhed, Sab Kiya. So emergency was one of the dark chapters in the history of India, no doubt about that. But she also there were the highs, as I said, when she changed geopolitical realities with the creation of Bangladesh.
But the emergency was interesting because everybody who went to jail at that point in time became friends and then ultimately landed up. And that is what's interesting about this book, is because you don't necessarily just read the main events, but you actually see what's happening behind. That's why it's interesting. Yes, somebody from here wants to ask a question. Yes, sir.
Hello, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for giving me a chance to ask question. See, contribution from every prime minister is great in the country, from Nehru to Modi ji. But only prime minister which I found who haven't faced the press in openly. Any thought of
Who?
any? So Modi ji have not faced the press in open actually.
Should
So
we stick these questions to the book? Would that be better?
no, that is
No,
not
but
in the book.
I can also say, I hope, every politician now wants it to be a one-way conversation, no doubt. The new media has made it like that. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, press conferences have become a thing of the past. But I still hope, I keep saying this, I still hope Mr. Narendra Modi will give a press conference before his second term comes to an end. And before he goes into his third term, which he's likely to do.
Sir finally seems happy. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
हेलो हेलो मैम मैम जैसे कि अभी आपने हाँ जैसे मैम आपने अभी कहा था कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जो हैं वो हर चीज को एक अलग नजरिए से और एक अलग सोच से लेके जाते हैं अगर कोई भी नया काम करना हो। तो अभी जो हम लोग 2047 का एक लक्ष्य देख रहे हैं भारत के लिए, तो आप उसको कैसे देखते हैं कि ये जो अभी वर्तमान में जो सरकार है वो उसको कितनी अच्छी तरीके से पूर्ण करेगी और भारत को एक नई ऊंचाइयों पर लेके जाएगी जो विश्व में एक अलग भारत को महत्व देगी?
थर्ड टर्म में क्या करेगी सरकार? इज दैट व्हाट इट?
Yes. I think
अच्छा,
she's
मैं
answered.
एक चीज आपसे कहना चाहती हूँ जो एटलीस्ट इट्स माय विश कि यू नो इट इज नरेंद्र मोदी का फिनोमेनन मुझे लगता है हमने पूरी तरह से समझा नहीं है अभी तक। इसको और समझने की जरूरत है। ऑफ कोर्स ही स्टैंड्स फॉर हिंदू हृदय सम्राट, नेशनलिज्म एंड नेशनल प्राइड, सोशल वेलफेयरिज्म, गैस सिलेंडर्स, पेंशन, इस सब के हाथ में कुछ ना कुछ आ रहा है। 5 किलो grains, इतना farmers go and so on. So social welfareism, a popular leader with no family in tow who works round the clock, and adept at political marketing, the use of the new media, technology, communication tools, much before anybody else came on the scene. Aam Aadmi Party tried to do it at the local level. Congress was way behind, is now trying to catch up, if at all. तो वो नरेंद्र मोदी का है, बट समवेयर इज कॉट द एस्पिरेशनल इंडिया। वो लोग सोचते हैं ना, चाय वाला मेकिंग इट टू थ्रू द रैंक्स, आई कैन ऑल्सो मेक इट। सो ही इज सेलिंग अ ड्रीम टू इंडियंस। 10 साल बाद क्या, 25 साल बाद क्या, 50 साल बाद किस तरह का इंडिया, दैट ऑफ कोर्स। बट वी आर जो मेरा मन है ना, वी आर अ वेरी डाइवर्स कंट्री। मैं इलेक्शन टाइम आता है ना, हम लोग निकलते हैं एंड द कंट्री चेंजेस एवरी 20 किलोमीटर्स। खान पान, पहनावा, भाषा, ऑफ कोर्स कास्ट, रिलीजन, क्रीड, रेस, yellow races in the northeast, brown races here. It's such a colorful tapestry of India. Now you cannot have, you have to have, और ये मेरी किताब की finding है, if there is one thing that's a takeaway for me, it is that India has to be run like a coalition with this diversity. It has to listen to the last voice. It has to be run by consensus. Now most prime ministers tried to find their way a middle road करने के लिए, लेकिन जो मुझे चिंता का विषय है ना, आज अगर मुसलमान, the minority community, which is almost 200 million, if they feel insecure, and they do, they feel worried, they feel हम बाहर जाएंगे कुछ कहेंगे तो पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा, we have to reach out to them in a spirit of reconciliation. And I hope Narendra Modi, with this Hindu resurgence, and I see it, I went to Varanasi, I went to Ayodhya, I see signs of Hindu resurgence. Young people, but will we reach out to the minorities in a new way, in a spirit of reconciliation? And I hope Narendra Modi will do that in his third term.
Fingers crossed for that one. Yes, sir. I promised, yes.
Ma'am, the anecdote about Narasimha Rao that you mentioned a while ago, just taking a cue from what you said, that he wanted to take the Hindutva plank from BJP, do you think that's either fully or partly responsible for him being conferred with Bharat Ratna as late as now?
हो सकता है, yes, it could be. It could be. But it's also true that this was the minus point of Narasimha Rao, what happened with the Babri Masjid. Of course, the BJP may not regard it like that. But Narasimha Rao did a lot. When he took over as Prime Minister, India was aflame. Punjab was burning, Jammu Kashmir was burning, Mandal fires, 200 students had immolated themselves. Mandir Rath Yatra had taken place. There was violence across North India. So that is the country inherited. And there was almost bankruptcy as far as the economy went. There was a huge balance of payment crisis. और एक साल में उन्होंने संभाल लिया. He opened up the economy, he brought down the temperatures, he went, the Soviet Union had collapsed, it had become a unipolar world, so he reached out to the Central Asian republics, look East policy, so many things Narasimha Rao did. Sometimes they are forgotten, and I think his party did not give him his due. Of course, and his body was not even allowed to enter the headquarters of the Congress party. It was kept outside.
Another story that I just found out. Ma'am, एक सवाल, आपने इतने सारे prime ministers के बारे में लिखा है. Who is the one prime minister that you think who didn't get their due?
Who has not yet got his
Who has not yet got
I
his
think is Vishwanath Pratap Singh. He's a hated name amongst the middle class. मैं जब घूमती हूँ ना, तो मैंने at least dozens of places I would have asked this question of younger people. I say, have you heard of this? Have you heard of Nehru? Yes. Have you heard of Indira? Yes. Have you heard of Morarji? Yes. Have you heard of Shastri? Yes. Have you heard of Charan Singh? Yes. अभी 2 दिन पहले भी है. Have you heard of Rajiv? Yes. Have you heard of Vishwanath Pratap Singh? No. In not one meeting have I come across people who have heard of his name. I was going to ask you this question because of curiosity, but I'm sure you would have heard. This crowd would have heard of VP Singh's name. Now, one of the thumb rule I used in this book, मुझे decide करना था किस प्रधानमंत्री के बारे में लिखना है, किसके बारे में नहीं लिखना है. I cannot write about 14 prime ministers. So the thumb rule I used was जिसने अपना term complete किया है. And I made 2 exceptions. One was Nehru, not because it's become fashionable to rubbish him, because I think he built the edifice of modern India and its institutions, but because I felt my own political consciousness starts after that. So whatever I do will be a cut and paste job. And the other exception I made was Vishwanath Pratap Singh, to include him, even though his term lasted for only 11 months. Because why? His decision to bring Mandal to empower the OBCs has changed India forever. And today we have an OBC Prime Minister. And you had an OBC do Pran Pratishtha at the Ram temple, not a Brahmin. The significance of this hasn't yet sunk in. And OBCs are going to be the buzzword of 2024 elections also.
The buzzword, it seems. For everybody who's just come in, we're talking to Neerja Chowdhury, who's written a book, How Prime Ministers Decide. She's written about 7 Prime Ministers, starting from Indira Gandhi, going on till Manmohan Singh. Who's been your favorite? I had to ask.
No, I'm not going to
Come
say.
on, everybody has a favorite.
No. I'm asked this question. Who do you think was the best Prime Minister?
No, who was your favorite?
And Barkha asked me who's the one who was most least understood. But no, I'll tell you who I find most fascinating.
Oh, who's your favorite?
Favorite Henny, because after writing this book, I have less so also. Because there is the good side of every Prime Minister and there is the bad side of every Prime Minister. So it becomes very difficult to make a judgment. But fascinating, Indira Gandhi. Why? Maybe because I'm a woman, but as I have said earlier, 40 years later, she still continues to, kya tha inme, this enigma. I haven't put Narendra Modi under the scanner yet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Is the last few questions, because you're going to wrap up? Yes, sir.
All of us in our lives, it's about
Shuru karo.
it's about decision making, what you have written in your book. So decisions are based on inputs we get, analysis made, but at the end of everything, it's that fine line about your emotional override or biases or whatever. So who was the Prime Minister in your assessment who put emotions first, or maybe emotions ruled over decision making?
Emotions rule over decision making? No. But an emotional Prime Minister was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Kavita ke through express karna. But even he was a very hard-headed politician. They can be emotional in their expression, but they are all very hard-headed when it comes to political interest. Each one of them.
Who's the one politician who didn't take responsibility for his actions? I'll give you an example. There's this whole chapter on Rajiv Gandhi, where towards the end you write that he was the one who opened the gates of the Babri Masjid. And somewhere he said, "नहीं मैंने नहीं किया था." मतलब I wasn't fully aware of it. Similarly, for VP Singh and Mandal, there's this bit in the book where you write that VP Singh met a bunch of people before he passed. He said there was not a single person who disagreed or raised his voice, and maybe I would have thought back. So that's a little bit of
That is when the cabinet, when he brought the thing that he was going to bring Mandal, he said that there was no dissenting voice. There were एक दो लोगों ने हल्के से बोला था, वो भी बाहर बोला था. एक दो लोगों ने उठाया था. If there had been opposition, I would have remembered. That's what you're saying. That is in the cabinet when he was talking about. Yeah.
but shirking away a little bit from the decision.
No, I think he was very clear when he brought in Mandal. And he did it because his government was beleaguered. It's another matter, the fallout that's taken place.
Took place. Yes. Any of the आप पूछ रहे हो नहीं आप पूछ रहे हो
My question to you is that.
I have a problem only
Hello.
the men seem to be asking questions.
My question to you is.
Not a single woman has asked a single question. Problem I have. But go on, sir.
Okay, so I was asking that how do you approach politicians or public figures to ensure a balanced and insightful conversation? Can you please mark your knowledge on this?
You need to see more than one person to check out, to corroborate. Or you corroborate like I have used members of the Mohan Meekan family about this Chamunda Devi incidents. Now, this person told me, he had become close in the Congress, he joined the Congress. He told me in 1999. ये कहानी उन्होंने 99 में मुझे बताई थी. And I was so interested, I wrote it all down in detail. उस समय मुझे लगा मुझे किताब लिखनी चाहिए. Some point I will write a book. This is all, this is the human side of the Prime Minister and the complexity of decision making. Now, 2018, when Aleph commissioned me to do this book, I went back to the same person with the tape recorder and I put him on tape. The details of that story, hoo-bahu wahi the. Exactly the same. I knew he wasn't planting this on me. It's not possible 19 years later to remember.
You say it word by word.
So you have to corroborate. एक ने कुछ कहा उसको किसी और से corroborate करो. That you have to be very vigilant about.
It also, this whole chapter also started.
I must also tell you that people I have interviewed, and I have interviewed scores, those who are alive, I sent them the transcripts of what I was using as told by them but to me, and said, have I got you right? Is this accurate? Each one of them I sent and got an okay, only then I used it.
Industry and politics, very firmly linked. Industrialists and politicians, very, very firmly linked. With every chapter, with every change of prime minister, the people surrounding him change, the industrialists change. You want to give us a little?
That is true. With every prime minister, they may change, they may not change.
But their role remains.
Now, Mr. Adani is close to so many politicians in the Congress. He's supposed to be close to the BJP side, but he's also close to the Congress side. Mr. Ambani is close to both sides.
Yes.
So these are people who will fund all parties. They may do it unche nicha, on अच्छा कर रहा है कौन नहीं कर रहा है.
तो इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स की बात भी हो रही है.
इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स की बात जो हुई है उसमें कहा गया है कि जिन्होंने जितना पैसा दिया आप रिवील करिए. That's an interesting thing for transparency. But every setup has its own funders, its own fixers, its own lobbies. वो कहानी में तो fixers की कहानी मैंने दी है in the Manmohan Singh chapter. Amar Singh, who didn't like to be called a fixer, he was a Samajwadi Party MP, but he was a class by himself. And he just didn't want to fix things in India. He wanted to do it in the US with the Clintons and powerful people there. So somebody called Sant Chatwal in America a hotelier who also, lobbies with the senators and helped out in the Indo-US nuclear deal. But Delhi ke power corridors are full of these people, and they play a very vital role.
Yes, you should read the book for that. It's very fascinating to see how politicians, when they're talking to other parties, use a lot of journalists as well and a lot of industrialists. But are there any questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, it's a girl finally.
So, ma'am, as we know that back in time, ma'am, as we know that back in time, not many women had the desired opportunities to follow the profession, and you were a very profound generalist, as we all know. And in today's time, there are a lot of women and females following the profession, doing journalism. So, what are your views? Back in time, the journalism, and today's journalism. What are your views on it?
Two questions, women and journalists.
Yes.
Women and journalism, and past and present.
Yes.
The challenges before the women today in the profession are many more.